Hey everybody, I'm super excited because I have friend and colleague and agent extraordinaire Sarah Fraser with me today. Hi Sarah.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
You know, like what? Nothing about video games.
The extent of my knowledge of video games really extends to about Duck Hunt. We were not allowed to have video games in our house growing up, so I remember going over to my best friend Crystal Lloyd's house growing up to play Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and I remember being very good at Duck Hunt, but also I am from the Midwest and, you know, Kansas specifically, so not surprising.
A natural instinct for guns, I guess.
Right.
For today, we're going to be listening to a bunch of tracks. If it's your first time, welcome. If you have seen these other episodes before, you know how this goes. This is really interesting to me because in the past, we've had directors, we've had general managers, and today we have our first opera agent, which is really interesting because I think that Sarah will bring a new insight. The first track we're listening to is from a recent game that just came out called Final Fantasy 16. Yes, there have been 16 of them. Have you ever heard of Final Fantasy?
I have heard of it. I have not ever seen it.
What you need to know about this is that these two brothers have now become monsters, icons of fire. They are battling it out against each other, and it's a whole complex plot.
Pretty operatic.
Yes, it is. It's very Shakespearean, it gives me very Gesamtkunstwerk vibes, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. So that was your first intro to music from a video game in several years? What do you make of that?
That was like beyond epic. The way it just continued to grow and develop, I was like, how long is this going to be sustainable? Like, oh my God, it just kept building and building and building. It felt much more, I guess, to me, cinematic than what I expect, you know, like a video game to be. And so that was really interesting. The way that the music does match what you're watching on screen.
Yeah.
Even though there's like the game element, I find that it would be so hard to like continue with the game element because I'm so like involved in the like the music and like what's happening dramatically. I'd be like, oh yeah. Crap, I gotta like do stuff with buttons and things.
Actually, it's funny you say that because there's another track that's it sounds exactly like Vivaldi. There were some comments on the video I did about it that people were like, I kept dying because the music was so good, and truly it sounds like Vivaldi. And there was a moment, I'll send it to you after because you need to hear it, but like my mouth, I was literally like, what? Was that what you wanted?
Yes. 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 That was so fun.
Like, what draws you that? Obviously, we've got some like Bach stuff in there, right? Like Buxtehude and like
when we were all in like music theory class in undergrad, and there was that like every time you write parallel fifths, Bach kills a kitten. I'm like, what does Bach say about this? No, that was fantastic. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy like a good, like rousing bit of metal. So I was on the debate team in high school. We would do speed drills to try and learn to talk and enunciate as quickly as possible. And so I used to take AC/DC tapes along to AC/DC while I'm like reading articles about like weapons of mass destruction. A few years ago, I saw a video of this guy doing this like metal cover of the Brahms Requiem, specifically the Den es wird die Posaune, and it's fantastic. Of course, it goes on for like 18 minutes, and I'm like, I don't know that I need 18 minutes.
Yeah.
3 minutes, 100%, and it's fantastic and also kind of hysterical. But also, I wonder what Brahms would say if he heard that.
Unfortunately, we don't have access to these guys anymore. And you know, and I often wonder, especially as I like sort of champion this idea that like a lot of video game music is the evolution of classical music, but also that like video game music is actually the home of classical music right now, I think. Obviously, you have a pulse on the industry right now, and you and I both know that there are plenty of fantastic composers in the opera world and in the symphonic world that are writing. But from where I sit, like there is such a bevy and like an unlimited amount of modern contemporary classical music that is embracing all sorts of styles. I forgot my point because I got kind of excited about that, but I don't know what I was trying to say.
Totally there with you on that. I think that like, you know, having heard especially that first clip and understanding just like the breadth of the music being composed for this sort of thing, like there's definitely a parallel to like classical music world or overlap or whatever you want to call it. Like it's all sort of like an extension of the same thing. But I love that this sort of niche of classical music world has found its home in popular music.
Something that's really cool about video game music is that this is also another game that has just come out. I was playing it live the other day, and I was like, wait a second, I know this tune. And I kind of wonder, do you know Finiculi, Finicola? Of course you do.
Yeah.
As an Italian man, my absolute favorite rendition of Finiculi, Finicola was like that of Beniamino Gigli singing it. And I used to listen to it with my dad. This is inspired by like these games called Wario World. And the music is actually, even though it came out a year ago, let's say, it's referencing music in the way that it was being written from the 90s. So weird.
So weird and charming.
Yeah. Like, and then it picks up speed a little bit. It's so stupid. I love it.
Like the bossa nova thing. Sort of
yeah, samba. But so it's crazy to me, right? Because Finiculi Finicola, obviously we know it was like, you know, written about the opening of the funicular, believed to Vesuvius, or I don't remember what it was for, but it's like, it's so crazy that somehow ends up in like Pizza Tower. You hear how like it's different and like it has this 8-bit quality.
Oh, yeah. That is like the sound of my childhood.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like the beeps and boops that we think of when we think of video game music.
I love the throwback, and it's so interesting that like the 90s are sort of having their like pop culture zeitgeist again. I wish we could forget most of the fashion from the 90s. I'm like, nobody needs low-rise jeans and little black lacy choker things. Like nobody needs to see that again. But it's interesting that like in the music as well, that's sort of there are like subgenres of video games that are like doing this. Most of the time they're indie games that are like have a lower budget, but they're able to be made independently, and that's how they are able to create this kind of stuff. beautiful. If I had heard this in high school, this is probably the sort of thing I would have tried to get sheet music to. So I could like be that annoying person, like playing it on the piano at home or like before choir class started.
There's something so like warm and bright and like it really like resonates with the soul. You know what I mean? And trying to understand it.
It's a beautiful, like romantic melody. You've got multiple sort of choruses. So that way you hear that melody time and time again. And each time it is a little bit different. And her voice has this very ethereal sound to it. So like it really does a nice job of drawing you in. That you said that this is like at the end of the game.
It's the end of like a campaign. Yeah. Like I think it's like after the final boss when the credits roll, I believe.
Okay. So that makes sense that it feels like the credits rolling song at the end of a movie.
Yeah. Where you're like reflecting on what you just experienced. And
wow. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. That was hard. Yeah.
Life blooms like a flower far away, hold by the road, waiting for the one to find a way back home. Rain falls
this is a countertenor.
Yeah. Male soprano, countertenor, yeah. I know.
Once went by, where will you belong? Life blooms like a flower far away.
It's the breathiness. It sounds more feminine to me.
Yeah. It shifts in a second, and when we go up, it'll be really interesting to hear. Key change.
That was epic. It was giving like 90s power ballad sort of.
Yeah.
Like, totally here for it.
It's interesting because you and I have both been around male sopranos and countertenors, and I think the facility there is really, really fantastic. And you're right, that breathiness is really interesting too.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, like, especially for countertenors and male sopranos, as they go like higher in the register, you don't generally hear that sort of quality. So that's really unique in this case. I remember when John Holliday, one of our clients, was on The Voice, and they did the big reveal when he appeared singing a jazz number. They had him faced away and everything. So then like you saw all of a sudden when Kelly Clarkson turned around and she was like, because turns out it wasn't a woman singing, it was John. Such a great moment. But yeah, it's always kind of fun when you get to like surprise people like that and be like, ta-da!
It's a thing. It's real. And John is such a fantastic singer. This higher male singing that is capable is really it's a phenomenon that I don't think a lot of people realize that is real and is really impressive when done beautifully and correctly.
Men singing in falsetto is not unique to classical music. I think of, you know, like even some soul singers, like, was it like Smokey Robinson? Even Al Green sometimes would like, you know, sing up in falsetto. Like it's not a new concept for popular music, you know, either. Axl Rose, I don't know, screaming.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a new concept. It's really interesting to see done in sort of this different way. The voice in this case is so interesting because I'm fairly good at identifying, like hearing a male or like a woman's voice. And so like this totally would have thrown me off had you not said anything. Yeah.
That's cool. So this is Conkers' Bad Fur Day. And the song is actually The Great Mighty Pooh. It is about a large piece of poo that sings opera. This is like early thousands video game interpretation of what opera is.
Great.
For better or for worse. Uh-oh. This is very 2001.
Me. Of course. I am the great mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you. A huge supply of tish comes from my chocolate starfish. How about some scat, you little twat? Do you really think you'll survive in here? You don't seem to know which creek you're in. Sweet corn is the only thing that makes it through my rear. How do you think I keep this lovely grin? Now I'm really getting rather mad. You're like a niggly, tickly, shitty little tag nut. When I've knocked you out with all my bab, I'm going to take your head and ram it up my butt.
Your butt.
My butt.
Your butt.
That's right, my butt.
Ugh.
My butt. My butt.
All right. I wouldn't show that to just anybody. I had to show it to you.
I feel very special.
You could handle that. Why would I show that? What's there to say about the great mighty Pooh, you know?
It is kind of an aria in its own way. It's giving maybe some Bizet, like some Toreador.
It's giving you some
Toast vibes.
It's definitely got, you know, some call and response there, and it's got a nice, lovely ending.
There's a great high note at the, in the middle there. I'm sure there's a cabaret somewhere you could perform that at, like as an encore at the end, you know?
Yeah, honestly, like, you know, you should
know
send this to one of your clients and be like, look, I think this will really blow them away.
Charming.
That feels like something that you could sing in like a legit like opera cabaret.
Yeah, that's like exactly what I was thinking. Like for like a symphony concert, like it would actually be perfect because like the range, there's like actually like a decent range.
It reminds me of a lot of like, I don't know, like Ravel art song maybe a little bit.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, I love that it's kind of got that sort of like tango feeling underneath. So it like moves the whole time. What is the game about again?
Fighter planes.
Sure.
It's very operatic, though, I have to say. And the music actually uses a bunch of Latin chorus in there, too. I've like played it for Kathy Kelly, like put that in a concert hall because it literally sounds like it could be some of the stuff is like Latin chant that it literally could be like a modern evolution of the Requiem or Carmina Burana. You hear the Moonlight Sonata?
Yep.
Yeah.
giving me somebody dramatically like running in the rain to like, I don't know, get to their, I don't know, whoever's been kidnapped or, you know, something like that.
I really dig the track because I think it's fun to take something that's very, very, very obviously a classical music piece and then say, actually, surprise, here is a different version of that with like a EDM.
It's like a really interesting way to like get somebody's attention because that's a very recognizable theme. Like a lot of people know, whether or not you know classical music, you probably heard it in a commercial or a cartoon or something. And so you're like, oh, I recognize this. And just having that little bit of familiarity is like a really great way to then tie in and then go in a completely different direction with it. But you're already like invested because you're like, I recognize some kernel of this.
I wonder if someone who goes to see Carmen, or let's say they go to Traviata and they hear the Brindisi and they, you know, they've heard it somewhere in some commercial, and then they hear that. I wonder if it works the same way where they're like, oh, wait, I know this tune. And then all of a sudden they're more invested because they have that sense memory of the piece. You know what I mean?
It was like, I remember I got to take my mom to see Carmen for the first time at the Met. I think that was the first opera she'd ever seen. It was very special to her. And it was really cool then because she's like, oh, I recognize so much of that music, but you know, I had never seen the show. And then like, she was like, oh, I know this tune and I know this tune. Cause we know Carmen is so full of tunes, but to like be able to piece it together, like in order and understand how it fits into the story was like a really cool thing for her. And I was like, I'm so glad that she like had that opportunity and to like see it from beginning to end and, you know, stay awake the whole time.
We understand that video game music is programmatic. Its intention is to be accompanied by some sort of drama or visual, much in the same way of opera. But like, have you been able to listen to these tracks and sort of like have an appreciation for them without the visuals, or do you feel like if you saw them, it would mean that much more for you?
There's some that I feel can really stand alone. And then like with the last piece that we just heard, that's something that like I feel would be served by a visual element. Like you get a sense of like an emotion from it, but I feel like that would be heightened by a visual. Whereas the very first piece that we listened to, the Final Fantasy, that I think is completely standalone and could be programmed maybe by like a symphonic orchestra or something. Aside from the first one, most of them would be benefited by some sort of visual element.
That's interesting.
Maybe that's also my director brain because,
well, yeah, of course,
like, immediately goes to like what would be happening in this moment
that would make the music spin the way it is. Because obviously the music is inferring an emotion, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people haven't fully realized about video game music is that every composer composes with the intention of having an emotion around a piece so that then you as an audience member can then have a reaction, right? And I think we forget that sometimes. Sounds familiar, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Nearly identical right now.
I spent my life suffocating. Will you stay a part of me for the rest of my life? I once was a dreamer, but then I grew up and saw the real world. When I look in the mirror, I can almost see you.
fantastic. Can you imagine like somebody programs like a Schubert recital and it's like, we're going to do Die Schöne Müllerin and then this is the finale.
Yeah. It really blew my mind when I first heard it because I was like, hold on, I know this. What? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's a musical theater rock ballad. Right? And it's like, what the hell?
That went not where I thought it was going. And I loved it. I was along for the ride.
I actually love the music of Genshin Impact. I actually think that this music is 1,000,000% the evolution of classical music. But also what's really amazing about the Hoyomix team and Yu Peng Chen, the composer, is that they take modern ideas of music like EDM, rock, and they will combine it with classical instruments. So I'm talking like folk instruments. Like in this case, this is an area of Japan. So we're talking like shamisen, koto, taiko drums. It's very, very cool.
So I trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I feel like if I listened to that while I was doing like sparring, I'd be so much better.
Do you want to listen to phase 2?
Sure.
I think you're about to lose your marbles with phase 2. So.
Oh my God. It was really interesting how it started much more structured, like classically structured.
Yeah.
Even with these traditional Japanese instruments sort of overlaid, but like the structure was very much like, this is classical music. And then as it went on, then some of those like more EDM sort of moments sort of start to come in. And then it got like a lot more sort of chaotic and fractured at the end. It was really interesting the way that progressed.
Yeah, it's a fantastic theme, and like you said, it's like really elevates the blood pressure and makes you want to go and like really beat the crap out of something or somebody. I love when something takes something that we know and modifies it, or it takes something like classical music and overlays it in a new way. You know what I mean?
It is almost the exact same sort of like harmonic sort of structure as Alekos Cavatina.
I never thought about that.
It's totally Tchaikovsky with like all this other stuff laid over it.
Really? I gotta re-listen to Alekos Cavatina. I love Alekos Cavatina. Does it border on like fake opera to you, or does it sound like legit? I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the singer per se, but the way it's structured, like I've tried to sing it, it seems legit, but I'm curious, you know, from your perspective.
Very operatic, like actually operatic. The singer, who I'm not gonna, you know, make any comments about, but like the piece itself is very rangy and like would require like an operatic voice.
A legit tenor, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, this is incredibly hard to do, and props to him to be able to pull that off, because it's incredibly difficult. And also the tempo is such that, like, regardless of the like sound quality of the vocalism, like the actual act of singing this is like near impossibly difficult. It's so hard.
Beautiful. I don't know what the language actually translates to.
To nothing.
Like
doesn't translate.
I felt like I should know what it all means, because it's all so close to all the languages that we've studied. Opera singers, we have to study, you know, French, German, Italian, and then, you know, Russian and other stuff. But the Romance languages, if I have to like try and fake my way through talking to somebody and like the Italian word for something isn't coming to mind, then like my brain wants to go to the French version. And I'm like, nope, that's not right. Don't do that. It definitely has like French melody vibes. To me, it's a little more popular than it is like classical art song.
Yeah.
I think the vocals are a little bit more like art song, and then with the guitar underneath, it makes it a little bit more pop.
We have just a couple more songs left, and so I guess this is a really good time to sort of explain to people who you are, what you do, what is an opera agent, who are you as a person.
My name is Sarah Fraser. I am an artist manager. I'm the vice president of Fletcher Artist Management. It's a lot of fun. I get to travel to see clients perform. That's one of the big perks for me. Initially thought I wanted to be a singer. I got a bachelor's in voice. I had a surgery when I was in undergrad, and they intubated me and used too large of a tube. I had some like temporary vocal damage for a while and couldn't really sing. And I was this voice major who couldn't sing, and I had like no idea what to do. The woman who was the head of the opera department, Marie Allen King, shout out, she was like, why don't you assistant direct The Marriage of Figaro with me? And that was like the light bulb moment that I was supposed to be on the other side of the table. You know, I look back at videos of me as a child, and I'm like bossing my sister around, like staging a show. And I'm like, oh, like it connects. It makes sense now. I love it. And I'm very proud of the artists that we work with. We pride ourselves on working with people who are not just amazing artists, but they're also great people.
Good people, yeah.
Life is too short. When I'm not doing that, I'm doing all the DIY projects. I just refinished our bathroom ceiling, you know.
Oh my God. I love it.
I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a purple belt now. It's been like 9 years. So, you know, someday I'll be like a 60-year-old black belt and just walking around with a cane or something. But I made it. The interests are definitely varied, but you know.
Yeah. And it's important to be well-rounded.
Keeps me out of trouble.
You know.
Four sopranos.
Yeah.
So incredibly satisfying. Like that was so epic. Oh my God. And I love that it very much started in this like almost sort of atonal world and then like turned into this like super epic cinematic sort of thing, and I also feel like this is actually like the Final Fantasy 16, like this is a standalone, like if it were part of an oratorio or a requiem or something, it could be its own thing.
Finding pieces that could exist within classical music like is like a life mission of mine now, because there's just so many good pieces that if you just removed them and put them in like a symphony hall with like a Mendelssohn, I don't know, like a Mendelssohn symphony and then intermission, and then you just put in like a random Ludwig the Holy Blade, no one would be worse for the wear. No one would know. You know what I mean? And now after an hour and 43 minutes, you're grizzled, you're battered, you're bruised, your ears are bleeding. What do you think about video game music now that all this time has gone by? Like, has it changed your perception a little bit? Like, where are you on the spectrum now?
It's changed my perception of what I thought video games were and are today, the way the music supports the story, and that there is this story, and it's not necessarily just about like, I don't know, collecting coins and trying to stay alive. I don't know, hunting the ducks, there's a lot more to it than that. And I can understand why people get so into these games, because you develop, like you do with opera or theater, you develop a relationship, like, feelings about these characters that you see on stage or on screen. And it's like, I understand that a little bit more now, I think.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. I hope you didn't say that because I brought you on, but hopefully you may.
No, but yay, gold star for me.
That's quite the journey. Are you still here? How are you doing?
I feel like my cortisol levels are like severely elevated now after like listening to that for like 9 minutes. I'm like, oh, I've been on the edge of my seat this entire time.
It doesn't really let up, does it? It's sort of this
sustained. Like, oh my God, it just keeps getting more and more intense. If you were excerpting this for a performance for an opera, you'd like cut out about like 4 minutes of it.
What I've tried to do today is to give you an indication of where things are, since you know where things have been. What I wanted to do is like sort of bookend this with another Final Fantasy 16 piece, since you really enjoyed Away. This piece is called Ascension. It's Bahamut's battle theme. It is ungodly. It is incredible. It is the evolution of classical music as we know it.
That was great because I feel like there were ways that kept like sort of breaking up the tension a little bit. Again, there's sort of like a Brahms Requiem, like one of the fugue moments, like yeah. That's what that reminds me of. It really is just classical music, you know, in the way that people do like concerts with Lord of the Rings, you know, Star Wars, Harry Potter. If this were like in a concert hall programmed like that as like some sort of live action of the game paired with the soundtrack, like I feel like people would lose their minds over that. Knowing
the context before would help even elevate it even more, but it is astounding that it can stand on its own and really make you feel like, okay, well, it looks like if this was Vivaldi times 1,000, this is what you would get. Now that we're done, what is your favorite piece that you listened to so far?
That one. Also then the Tenebre,
Rosso Sangue.
That was just really fun. I was like, oh yes, this is very like metal.
I really appreciate you coming on, and thanks a ton for being so open-minded. It was really fun.
I really had a good time. This was like totally different than I was expecting. And I like learned a lot about the different varieties of music and just like the quality level, like the production value level of all of it was like really interesting to me. So thank you for letting me.
Yeah, of course, of course. And thank you everybody for watching this. Feel free to check out other videos of this series as well. And thanks, Sarah, again. And we'll see you later. Feel free to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.